This is an ad by Regain Couples Therapy and features real testimonials.
This was our first time trying therapy, and honestly, it was long overdue. Looking back, we just wish we had started sooner.
Regain's qualified therapists help couples when they can't get there on their own.
We thought it was intimacy issues, but Andrea helped us uncover a deeper root cause we hadn't even realized was there.
Visit regain.com/couplespod to get 10% off your first month. Regain, couples therapy that works.
Building a business may feel like a big jump, but OnDeck Small Business Loans can help keep you afloat. With lines of credit up to $100,000 and term loans up to $250,000, OnDeck lets you choose the loan that's right for your business. As a top-rated online small business lender, OnDeck's team of loan advisors can help you find the right business loan to fit your needs. Visit OnDeck.com for more information. Depending on certain loan attributes, your business loan may be issued by OnDeck or Celtic Bank. OnDeck does not lend in North Dakota. All loans and amounts subject to lender approval.
Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.
This is True Crime Cast. Jamie back in the recording studio with John in what seems like forever.
Do I have a tan?
You do a little bit. I mean,
like tan for me?
Red is red a tan color?
Bro, I went to the beach with my fam. I got sunburnt like I haven't been sunburnt in decades on the first day.
Miserable all week?
No, I wasn't really miserable. Somehow my body is immune to that pain because it happened so much as a kid. But it wasn't comfortable. Yeah. It wasn't unbearable. But I also didn't swim for a couple of days after the first day.
I get it. I'm sorry to hear that.
It was still a great vacation.
Okay,
but I do feel like this is as tanned as old John Boy's going to get.
I think you're probably right. Still pretty pasty. But we're glad you're back. We got a good case to get you jump-started back into True Crime Cast for the end of July. We're heading into the second half of the first month of the second half of the year.
That was so, my brain literally just exploded with math.
I tried to do that on purpose. Yeah.
I can't believe it is almost August already. That is insane. Happy New Year.
Yeah, we're less than 2 months from CrimeCon, man.
That is also insane. I flew to the beach and it made me think, man, in a couple of months, we're going to be flying to Colorado and I'm excited.
We've never, that's a longer conversation. We haven't gone on many big trips like that together. So it'll be fun. We hope to see some of you, all of you there. You can use CrimeCast as a code to get 10% off your ticket to go to CrimeCon. The list of speakers is just insane. If you're a fan of true crime, which I assume you are, if you listen to us, you will love that experience.
It is going to be awesome. We have some sweet merch to give out to you. I shouldn't say merch because we're giving it away. Swag. Yeah. Stuff we all get, baby. So come and check us out. It would, like the other show we have, bless my heart to see you there.
I want to give a big thank you to a new 5-star review that came in. This is from Marissa Thompson. This has quickly become one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to and look forward to each week. They are great storytellers, keeping with the facts, but putting a spin on all cases that really makes you visualize and feel for these victims and their families. I'll never miss an episode, and I'm currently binging all the episodes I haven't heard yet. Keep it up, guys. Take care, Marissa T.
Marissa, thank you so much. That is so sweet.
It is.
Please come to Colorado and see us.
Yeah, we'll say hi. We'll take a picture, give you some swag. It'll be a great time.
I want to say thank you to a couple of folks over on Patreon. So Shannon and Hunter both joined while I was laying on the beach, and they both joined for the $3 level. That's the base level. That gets you instant access to everything we've ever put over on Patreon. That's early episodes, ad-free episodes. Most importantly, it is the bonus episodes only available to Patreon members. So again, as little as $3 a month can let you have access to everything we've done that is exclusive to Patreon members for the last 7 years. $3, that's a bargain.
It's a lot of content to catch up on. So go check that out. We really appreciate everybody that is supporting us over there. That's really what keeps the proverbial and literal lights on in our studio. So thanks, guys.
Yep, we appreciate it. Jamie, this case is nutso, and we're going to be talking about a place called Bear Brook. And yeah, I'll just let you get us started because this one's wild.
Yeah, nutso's a good way to put it, and not in a fun nutso clown.
We're not talking about Bozo the Clown over here.
We're not. This is it's pretty heartbreaking and very tragic, but it's a story that needs to be told. We're going back to November 10th of 1985, where a hunter came across a 55-gallon drum near the site of a burned-down store in Bear Brook State Park in Allenstown, New Hampshire. Something looked wrong, so he called the police. Inside that barrel, investigators found the bodies of an adult female and a young girl, both wrapped in plastic. Both had died of blunt force trauma, and neither at the time could be identified. The adult was determined to be a white woman between 23 and 33 years old. She had curly, wavy brown hair. She was somewhere between 5'2 and 5'7, which is quite a range. She had significant dental work done, a lot of fillings and extractions, so dental records could be very helpful there. The girl in the barrel was preteen, somewhere between 6 and 11 probably. She had symptoms of pneumonia, and she had some issues with her teeth as well, a lot of crooked teeth. So again, if she had seen a dentist, her imprint would have been identifiable. She had 2 earrings in each ear, and she was between 4'3" tall and 4'6" tall.
I know there's a law like HIPAA, but in today's world, like, would it be illegal if like dentists were able to upload an image of your x-rays and then police were able to take those and compare them like somehow through AI to determine if their victim has a match to the dental records, and then you could get a warrant for their information?
I think, yes. I think it would be illegal.
Like if it's just a picture of the teeth and no identifying information, I don't feel like that should be illegal. That would be very helpful.
It could be. And I don't know that something like that doesn't exist. I think it could work backwards, where you have like a database of people who have been found missing, and then, I don't know, somehow you see if dental records match up. I don't know. You're right. It seems like it would solve a lot of issues to be able to do that, but I don't know about the legalities of sharing that kind of information. But when they found these victims, they decided to honor them, and they were buried in the Allenstown Cemetery, and a local headstone maker donated a headstone that said, "Here lies the mortal remains, known only to God, of a woman aged 23 to 33 and a girl aged 8 to 10. Their slain bodies were found on November 10th, 1985 in Bear Brook State Park. May their souls find peace in God's loving care." And for years, this was an unsolved mystery. Again, this happened 40 years ago here in a couple months.
Yeah, so wild, man. It's just so much we could talk about, but I'll move on because on May 9th in the year 2000, near where the first barrel was found, there was another 55-gallon drum that was found by the lead detective in this cold case. Because again, their names or identities have not been determined. So, you know, along with that, neither has the perpetrator. So this is still an active case, albeit very cold. So they find another barrel. Now, the detective was out looking in the area to get a feel for the crime scene when he found the second drum. So in this drum were the bodies of 2 more little girls. The cause of death for both of them was also blunt force trauma. Now, both girls were younger than the girl found in the first barrel, so they are referred to as the middle girl and the youngest girl. The middle girl was between the ages of 2 and 4. She had brown hair, she had a gap between her front teeth, and she may have also suffered from anemia. The youngest girl was between 1 year old and 3 years old. She had blonde or light brown hair and was about 2 foot tall, between 2 foot and 2.5 feet tall. None of them were identified as of 2000, but there was an assumption that these 4 people were a family. So they think that all of these victims in the barrels are part of one family.
Here's my issue with this. If they found this barrel in 1985, and in theory they investigated the area, how did they miss a barrel that was then found 15 years later? It seems like it would get harder to find as time went on, as growth happened around it.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, this guy didn't say that this guy was out there with a metal detector and a pickaxe.
Or an excavator even.
He was just, it felt like from what I've researched, he was just trying to get kind of the lay of the land, kind of get his head into the case. And then he found more. It's wild.
Now, just imagine that what we've told you so far is a cold open for a movie, and then we go back and it says 1986, and we're going to start what seems like a different story, which will tie in to what we're talking about here. 1986, Scotts Valley, California, a man named Gordon Jensen was working as a handyman in an RV park. He had his daughter, 5-year-old Lisa, with him, and she would run around the park. She played with other kids. It seemed like she had a happy life as a little girl. Jensen eventually made friends with a couple in that park, a family known as the Deckers. And eventually, Jensen felt comfortable enough to confide in the Deckers that being a single father was too hard for him. He told them several different stories about what had happened to Lisa's mom. That didn't seem to add up. He told one story about her having cancer, and another she ran into a street and was hit by a car. Obviously, he's not a very truthful, trustworthy person, but he continued to say that he doesn't think he's cut out to be a single dad. The Deckers tell Jensen that their daughter in Southern California has always wanted a little girl, but was never able to have one. So Jensen agrees that he will give his little daughter Lisa over to the Deckers on a trial basis for a potential adoption. John, as a social worker, this isn't the way this happens, right?
No, it's not at all. Man, there's so much to unpack there, but if we didn't just talk about barrels full of bodies, if that was out of the picture and Jensen is just trying his best to provide for his daughter and he knows he can't do it, maybe it's a loving act, but I don't know. Given that there's barrels and bodies and barrels, I don't think this is
it could be a loving act, but there are also proper channels to go through for this.
Right. Yeah.
Which is not here, you take her and let's see how it goes.
It happens a lot. Not saying it's the right way, but it does happen quite a bit. Sure. And it's a really simple process. If you are interested in that, let me know. So when the Deckers get Lisa to Southern California, they are happy and they are just glad to have her as part of the family. So they're all getting along, but then Lisa starts showing some signs that she had been abused in the past. So they call authorities and they want to have Lisa interviewed. But when they call back to the RV park to track down Jensen, he is gone. He has vanished. He has quit his job. He's packed up and he has left and he is nowhere to be found. Unfortunately, with her father abandoning her and her mother presumed to be dead because we don't know what happened to her, Lisa was taken from the Deckers and she was placed in child protective custody. Investigators in San Bernardino go to the RV park to see if the handyman may have left any fingerprints on any equipment that he had installed around the park. And sure enough, they found some prints and they discovered his name was not Gordon Jensen, but rather his name was Curtis Kimball. And he had a drunk driving accident a few years earlier with Lisa in the car. Just know this guy's name is going to change a lot, and I'll do my best to keep it straight as we go through the story. In 1988, Kimball was arrested for driving a stolen vehicle, and at the time, he gives the name of Gerald Mockerman. So did you have something to say?
Yeah, his name is Mockerman. That seems like I'm mocking, but like it's pretty obviously. There may be a listener named Mockerman. If so, I apologize. Seems like a fake name.
Yeah, that's a smart fake name to give somebody, and I just don't picture him as the smartest guy. Is that
Mocky Mockerton? Is that his name? Sorry.
So when they took his prints, they identified him as someone who has abandoned his child, and he's taken into custody and arrested. So, all right, Jensen, Kimball, Mockerman, all the same person, 3 different names, one guy, served 1.5 years in prison when he's released on parole. And at that point, he fled the area and became a fugitive because he was on parole. He had to stay in the area. So him leaving made him a fugitive.
So he fled. He's still on the run. And we're going to make a little time jump here to the year 2000 for those of us that survived Y2K. But we are going to stay in California for the time being. We're going to talk about an individual named Yunsu Jun. Now, this person was a Korean immigrant, a chemist who loved to travel, spent a lot of time out on her own, exploring cultures and religions. And she was out there, putting herself out there, looking for love.
Looking for love in all the wrong places.
I got a feeling it's not going to be the right place here. In 2000, she was excited to introduce a man who was her new boyfriend, Larry Vanner, to her family. It wasn't a great introduction. Her friends and family thought that he was kind of shady and rude, and that first impression, John, is everything, because it's hard to change it after you have it. One friend said that Vanner would gobble up everything at the table, let out a big old burp, and then leave the table to go sit down by himself. So he just seemed...
was this me?
Right. This is me at Thanksgiving, every major family holiday.
And it's considered rude to her friends.
For the first meeting, it was. He didn't even try to create a good first impression or try to build relationships. They just weren't fans of him. In 2001, Vanner and Yunsun had an unofficial backyard marriage ceremony, but no marriage certificates were ever filed. So this is a ceremonial procedure, not legally married. The relationship continued, and Yunsun was being pulled further and further away from her family and friends, which we often identify as being potential for an abusive relationship. Every time her best friend Rose called, Vanner answered, and he had an excuse for why Yunsun couldn't come to the phone. Eventually, Vanner told Rose that she didn't want to be friends with her anymore and she should stop calling. Rose responded that she wanted to hear this from her friend herself. She did not believe Larry, and she wanted to hear it from her, or else she was going to contact help.
So Rose tells Vanner that she is leaving for a 10-day vacation. She said if she didn't come home to hear the voice of her friend on her answering machine, then she was going to call the police. So Rose came home, and in May of 2002, she called the police to report her friend missing. Larry Vanner was brought in for questioning, where he rambled on, really not saying much of anything. At one point, he said that Yunsun had a nervous breakdown, but at another time, he said that she was managing property for him in Oregon. So officers fingerprinted him, and his identity came back as Curtis Kimball. Detectives started asking him who he really was and pushing him to be honest. And then he was ultimately arrested for violating parole because, again, he had ran away and was a fugitive on the run. In the meantime, detectives went to the home that he shared with Yunsun to search for any signs of her. This was messy. The house was messy, cluttered, but interestingly, there were no signs that a woman had lived there. There were no signs of women's clothing, shoes, nothing. It was all gone. Then investigators went into the garage, and when they entered a small crawl space near the back, they found an enormous pile of kitty litter. There was also blood spatter and an axe. This is the scene of nightmares.
This is what you would see on a scary movie. And we get back from the break, we'll talk about Vanner / Mockerman / Kimball / Jensen. Again, all the same guy, and what they ended up finding in his garage as they searched for Yunsun Jin.
Building a business may feel like a big jump, but OnDeck Small Business Loans can help keep you afloat. With lines of credit up to $100,000 and term loans up to $250,000, OnDeck lets you choose the loan that's right for your business. As a top-rated online small business lender, OnDeck's team of loan advisors can help you find the right business loan to fit your needs. Visit OnDeck.com for more information. Depending on certain loan attributes, your business loan may be issued by OnDeck or Celtic Bank. OnDeck does not lend in North Dakota. All loans and amounts subject to lender approval.
So in the garage of our suspect with many different names, unsure, I guess Kimball may have been the legal one they tied him back to, they continued to brush away the kitty litter and to look around where the axe was. And they immediately found a human foot. This would later be identified as part of the body of Yunsun Jin. She had died of blunt force trauma to the head. Vanner / Kimball / Mockerman / Jensen, we'll just go with Vanner for now, was charged with her murder, but the prosecutor wanted more evidence that directly tied him to the crime, as if her foot being found in his garage wasn't enough. The weapons in the area didn't have his fingerprints. A homicide detective named Roxanne Gunhide wondered if there was a way to tie those 10 bags of kitty litter back to him. But there were so many stores in the area that sold kitty litter, it seemed impossible. Then Roxanne gets a call from a bank saying they have surveillance footage of somebody using Yunsun's bank card to take money out. She remembers that there was a pet store right near the bank, so Roxanne visits on the off chance that somebody would remember this man and potentially be able to identify him as Vanner. And the man at the pet store did remember somebody coming in, buying 10 bags of kitty litter, and then he perfectly describes the man that is claiming to be Larry Vanner. So this could be a piece of evidence that leads to his conviction for murder.
This is absolutely amazing detective work. And I mean, we're going to even say more about Roxanne, but just amazing. But in the end, Vanner pled guilty. So one theory now is that he pled guilty in order to go to prison and then to avoid any other investigation into him. But something about this case just really stuck with Roxanne, mainly the child that he abandoned. So she thought about this and asked herself, like, who was this girl? And most importantly, like, was this child actually his daughter? So she decided to have Vanner's blood tested against the sample of the little girl that they had on file. And dude, they were not a match. Gordon, Jensen, Curtis, Kimball, Larry Vanner, all of those aliases, none of them was the father of this little girl, Lisa. So Roxanne called the San Bernardino Police Department because that was where the case originally came out of. And she told them this little girl is not who they think she is. She's actually a missing person, and she may have family out there who is looking for her. In 2003, they opened the investigation into Lisa's real identity. And at this point, Lisa was 22 years old and was open to finding out who she really was. So back in New Hampshire, the community was still searching for the identities of these people who were in the barrels. In June 2013, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children created facial renderings of the victims, and they released those to the public. In 2014, investigators also did DNA testing to determine that the adult woman was related to and likely the mother of the oldest and youngest child. So that answered some questions, but then led to the question of who is the middle child.
In 2015, investigators were still digging into this and trying to find Lisa's real identity. With the growing popularity of DNA ancestry sites and us finding all these things out with familial DNA and so forth, Lisa decided to go ahead and submit her DNA to one of those sites. She starts to discover distant cousins at first, and investigators enlist the help of a genetic genealogist, Barbara Ray Venter. I feel like genetic genealogist is redundant. Maybe I just don't understand how those are built, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I get it.
For Barbara, this was a truly tough case because typically you have at least a person's birthplace to start from, an area, anything. All they had was Lisa. No clue where she grew up. After hours and hours of building a family tree, they discovered who Lisa's birth mother was, Denise Bowden. Her real name was Dawn Bowden. Denise Bowden was last seen in Manchester, New Hampshire at her father's house for Thanksgiving. With her, she had her 10-month-old baby and her boyfriend, who went by Bob Evans. At this dinner, Bob tells Denise's family that the three of them are going to be leaving town because they owed people money. When Denise's father went to the house to invite them over for Christmas, their home had been packed up and there was no sign of them anywhere. Since the family was told they were going to pack up and move, they never filed a missing persons report and they never heard from Denise again. So it was just like she abandoned their family. They showed Denise's father the mugshot of Jensen Kimball Vanner, and he immediately identified him as Denise's boyfriend, Bob Evans.
So was the guy like hungry at the time and went with Bob Evans instead of Mockerman or Kimball or Vanner or Jensen?
He could be Colonel Sanders before this is said and done.
This is a lot of names, but hopefully you're keeping track because really all those names are just one guy. In 2016, there was a missing persons case opened for Denise Bowden. She went missing in 1981, and the last place she was seen was not far from the Bear Brook State Park. People began to wonder if Denise was the lady that was in the barrel. Bob Evans would have had the opportunity. He did electrical work in the camp shop near the dump site. So, investigators exhumed the body of the woman and the little girl from the first barrel in order to perform some DNA tests. The results showed that the woman was not Denise Bowden. They also tested the DNA of the two other girls and discovered that the middle child is not related to the others and is the daughter of Jensen, Vanner, and Kimball. So this was a huge revelation because now they could officially tie this man to the barrels. Now, more than ever, it was crucial to find out who this man really was. They enlist the help of Barbara, the genetic genealogist, once again, and in 2017, she was able to use the genetic profile of this man to build out a family tree and discover the real name, Terry.
Terry Peter Rasmussen, and we'll just call him Terry from this point, was born in Colorado on December 23rd of 1943. He had a pretty conventional upbringing as far as we know in Phoenix. He started high school in 1959, shortly thereafter dropped out. In 1961, he enlisted in the Navy, where he served for 6 years and trained as an electrician. In 1968, he was discharged from the Navy, and he moved back to Hawaii. That's where he met the woman he thought he was going to marry. The two of them had children, but Terry started showing signs of violent behavior, including burning his son with cigarettes as punishment. When Terry was arrested for aggravated assault in 1975, his wife took the opportunity to take her children and leave. The last time the family saw him was when he showed up at their house with an unidentified woman in 1976. His wife at the time was able to finally get an official divorce filed in 1978. Terry moved around quite a bit, lived in several different states over the years, and consistently had a woman with him and often had small children with him. His MO seemed to be spending weeks or months in a place, identify his victims, become part of their life, and then murder them and move on. Now, again, you said that they identified this man in 2017, but the man that we know is Terry Rasmussen, Vanner, Gimbel, Mockerman, Jimson, passed away in prison in 2010.
So with Terry dead, it's pretty clear that we're never going to have all of our question answered, but that didn't stop investigators from trying to identify his victims. But resources were thin, and amateur sleuths were there to help. Becky Heath was a librarian who lived in Connecticut who spent her off time scouring the internet for clues about the Bear Brook victims. And she would read internet forums where people would search for long-lost relatives and missing loved ones. Becky would read the posts searching for clues to anyone who might be related to the Bear Brook victims. When the New Hampshire Public Radio podcast about the Bear Brook murders came out in 2018, Becky was re-energized to find a connection. She remembered at one point seeing the name Sarah McWaters in a post saying that she was looking for her half-sister. The post indicated that the woman's half-sister was part of a family of 3 people that had been missing since the 1970s. So Becky matched the birth dates of each member of the missing family with the estimated age ranges of the Bear Brook murder victims. Becky contacted some of the family members from that post. So that's when someone said that they thought the adult woman was in a relationship with a man named Terry. So Becky couldn't believe what she had stumbled on, and she submitted that tip to local law enforcement.
There is so much internet sleuthing going on right now, and I think a lot of times it gets bad press, but there are situations like this where it makes such a big positive impact. At the same time that Becky was doing this, Barbara, again, the genetic genealogist, was trying to apply a new technique to this case. Previously, it was believed that you could get some autosomal DNA from a strand of hair that was not attached to the root. The case had been using mitochondrial DNA, which only traces somebody's maternal line or their mother's side of the family. Autosomal DNA gives a much broader overview of ancestry, but the bodies were so decomposed, they didn't think they could extract this type of DNA. But Barbara learned of a new technique to extract that autosomal DNA from unrooted hair strands. She was going to get a sample, and she was going to test it against what she already had. Within a few weeks of Becky's tip to police, Barbara is able to build out a full family tree that confirms the identity of 3 of the barrel victims.
So the adult woman that we saw in the barrel, we now know is Marlise Honeychurch. The oldest child is her daughter, Marie Vaughn, and the youngest child is her daughter, Sarah McWaters. So Marlise was born in Connecticut in 1954. She was bubbly and quirky. She had a great sense of humor. Her family said she was incredibly excited to be a mom. She loved her kids more than anything. Marlise was married twice and had a child with each man. She had Marie in 1971 and Sarah in 1977. In 1978, Marlise brought her boyfriend, Terry, home with her for Thanksgiving dinner. And the family said there was a small fight between Marlise and her mother, and Marlise left with the kids and her boyfriend. And that's the last time anyone in the family ever saw them. At the time of their death, Marlise was 24 years old, Marie was 7, and Sarah was only 11 months old.
In November of 2019, the city of Allenstown, New Hampshire, gave the identified victims a proper funeral with headstones that matched their real names instead of the anonymous ones we had discussed earlier. The family members of Marlise, the daughter of Terry, and the investigators who worked the case were all present when they had a ceremony for these individuals. The 4th girl, the middle child that we know was fathered by Terry Rasmussen, is still unidentified. They say that she was born between 1975 and 76 and that her mother is currently unknown, but it's believed that she was probably another victim of Terry. In October of 2024, a nonprofit organization known as the DNA Doe Project announced that they would work with New Hampshire State Police to try and identify the remains of the little girl who's unfortunately known as the middle girl that was found in these barrels. So even though we don't have her identity, we're still certain that Terry was involved in this. He died before he was able to be prosecuted and held accountable for any of these crimes. John, at this point, I think we have to start using the term, or at least entertaining the term, serial killer, and wonder how many victims he has around the country, because he traveled a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I was sitting here thinking the same thing, and this was at a time where it was probably easier to get away with some of this than it would be now. So with him being gone, dead in prison in 2010, I would have loved for, especially Detective Roxanne, to have sat down with him to get to the root of if there were more victims, who was the little girl that he gave away? What, was her family in other barrels somewhere in another state?
Right.
I mean, there's so many questions, and I don't think we'll ever get those answers.
Roxanne did a fantastic job. Becky, the online sleuth, let's get them teamed up on some of these other unsolved cases that we cover all the time, because they definitely utilize their resources and their hunches to come to some conclusions here that they give us answers. Do they give us peace? Do they bring people back? No, but we do have answers, and it seems that Terry was involved in these murders. I can't imagine that they're going to continue investigating this. It seems pretty clear that he was the person involved. Did he work alone? It seems like he did, because he was always seen with a woman and small kids. And as far as we know, it was always little girls. So these may have been some of these victims may have been related to him, but did he seek out women who had young daughters? Was that his MO?
It very well could be. I mean, that is definitely a part of his MO. Yeah. And I mean, just think about how many families met this guy, thought that he had just taken their daughters and their grandchildren away and then never saw them again. And now how many people are looking on at this case and saying, you know what? I thought my daughter just vanished with this nut job, but now he may have been the reason they never called back because he freaking murdered them. I mean, there could be so much more out there than we know.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And unfortunately, yes, there was a lot done in New Hampshire, but there's evidence of things that happened in California. So we can't narrow it down to a small area to say if your family went missing between these years in this area, like it's a wide range, and he was an absolute monster. But
between New Hampshire and California is the rest of the United States of America. So is there
decent spots between there? Yeah.
Is there a freaking trail of horror between those two states? I mean, I think it'd be worth looking at. Again, I'm sorry, I'm using AI a lot, but like, can we use AI to say, give me victims of or missing persons with daughters from any state between the years 1975 and 1985.
I think it's very possible you could get some hits. And with the databases set up the way they are, I actually think that's a pretty simple query to get to run, or to involve AI to make a list, or however you want to do it. I think it's very doable.
Yeah. So maybe in my free time this week, I'll see what I can find.
All right, guys, we appreciate you listening in. This was a story that may have seemed like, you remember that movie Crash, where it had like 4 stories and they all converge at the end? I kind of feel like movie. That's what this story was. And it converged, unfortunately, in a lot of horror and death. But Terry is no longer alive. He is no longer going to be a perpetrator of crimes like this. Thankfully, just hope we can get answers for other families that he may have victimized, and try to get some, I'm not even going to use the word closure. I'll just say answers for them.
Absolutely. Jamie, this was a good one. So thank you so much for bringing it to our attention.
We appreciate you guys. And don't forget to go look at Crime Con. See if you want to go. Would love to see you there.
Yep. And until next crime, this has been True Crime Cast.
You've listened to True Crime Cast, distributed by Stoveleg Media. Check out stoveleg.com to find out more about your hosts and to find other podcasts to listen to. Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.